Robin Gibb looked like the quiet twin, the gentle voice behind Bee Gees classics. But in 1981, FBI agents were investigating him for death threats. At 17, he started using a drug that kept him awake for days. By his 30s, he had over 100 affairs and was banned from seeing his own children for 6 years. His behavior became so extreme that even his closest friends were scared. What the world saw was a talented musician. What they didn't see was a man spiraling completely out of control. Robin Gibb was born early in the morning on December 22, 1949, at 3:15 a.m. He arrived 35 minutes before his twin brother Maurice at the Jane Crookall maternity home on the Isle of Man. That small gap in time would become a lasting symbol in their family. Robin, always a little ahead, was often seen as the quieter and more thoughtful twin, while Maurice grew into a more playful and relaxed presence. Their father Hugh paced the hospital floor, while their mother Barbara struggled through the long labor. The family later joked that Robin set the rhythm for the Bee Gees even before Maurice took his first breath. Both boys made it through the difficult birth, which was no small thing in post-war Britain, and their arrival became an important beginning to a family that would change music forever. The Gibb boys were born into music. Their father Hugh was a drummer and band leader, often playing in clubs across England and Scotland. He wasn't famous, but he was known, and his love for performing filled their home. Barbara had a beautiful voice and sang with bands herself. At night, when most families were asleep, the Gibb house was alive with jazz rhythms and melodies. The boys heard this music even before they could talk. As they grew, they soaked it in. Their parents didn't push them, but the music was always there. This wasn't just a family with a record player. It was a family built on sound. But the Gibb brothers weren't always angels. In Manchester during the mid-1950s, they were known as troublemakers. Barry, Maurice, and Robin got into all kinds of mischief. They skipped school, broke into shops, and even started small fires around the neighborhood. They once set fire to a billboard and a mailbox. Their behavior scared the neighbors and embarrassed their parents, who tried to keep them on the right path. Robin was once dragged home by the ear after being caught red-handed. It was wild, chaotic, and could have ended badly. But music soon gave them something else to focus on. Something bigger than trouble. One of Robin's neighbors, Marie Beck, remembered a moment that stayed with her for life. Robin was just a boy, maybe 8 years old, sitting in her living room. Out of nowhere, he announced, "We're going to be rich one day. We're going to form a band." Everyone laughed at first, but he meant it. There was something in his voice that didn't sound like a joke. As the years passed and the Bee Gees filled radio stations around the world, Marie often told that story. That little boy with big dreams had spoken the truth. In 1958, things got worse for the Gibb family. Money was tight, and hope was running out. Manchester was cold, gray, and full of struggle. So Hugh and Barbara made a bold move. They signed up for a government program and packed up the family to start over in Australia. The trip took nearly 2 months by sea. They arrived in Redcliffe on September 1, 1958, with little more than faith and a few suitcases. Everything was unfamiliar, but the sun was warmer, the people kinder, and the dream somehow felt more alive. Within weeks, the boys were performing at the local speedway, standing on the back of a truck and singing between races. Crowds didn't clap, they threw coins. The boys dodged bikes and collected money off the dirt track, and for the first time, they were getting paid to perform. It was a man named Bill Good who saw something in them. He worked at the speedway and had an eye for talent. He introduced them to a DJ named Bill Gates, who helped give them a new name, the Bee Gees. But more importantly, Good helped them get a chance at festival records. In 1963, Barry was just 17. Robin and Maurice were only 13. Still, they got signed. The recording studio was basic, and they had to do everything live. If they made a mistake, they had to start over. But it didn't matter. They were finally in. Their first songs were simple and raw, but they carried something special. They were learning fast, and their harmonies were starting to stand out. By 1966, things weren't looking good again. Festival was thinking about dropping them, but in a tiny studio run by Ossie Barn, they worked day and night. Then everything changed. Barry wrote Spicks and Specks, and the song hit a nerve. It shot up to number 4 on the national chart and even reached number 1 in some places. Suddenly, the Bee Gees were everywhere. That haunting harmony, that sadness in the lyrics, it was different from anything else out there. People remembered it. It didn't just save their career in Australia. It made them stars. As their music took off, so did their faces. Television loved them. They appeared on shows like Anything Goes and Cotty's Happy Hour. They were so young, they needed school permission slips just to perform. Their dad was now their manager, driving them to sets and helping them rehearse. Across Australia, people began to know them not just by name, but by sight. The Bee Gees were no longer a mystery band. They were the boys everyone watched each week from their living rooms. But even with all that fame, they knew Australia was only the beginning. In late 1966, they decided to go back to England. It was a big risk. They didn't have a contract lined up, and they were leaving behind a country that had finally embraced them. But their manager helped cut ties with Festival Records so they could be free to move. On January 3, 1967, they sailed on the fair sky. On February 6th, they arrived in Southampton. Unknown to them, their demos had already made it to England. When Barry walked into the offices of Polydor, they were ready. Within weeks, they were signed to a 5-year contract. Their new manager, Robert Stigwood, had big plans. The Bee Gees were promoted as the next big thing, and they lived up to the hype. When the Bee Gees released New York Mining Disaster 1941 on April 14, 1967, it wasn't just another song, it was a quiet explosion. This haunting track introduced Robin Gibb's trembling vibrato to the world. It was their first international single and their American debut. The lyrics painted a picture of miners trapped underground, waiting for a light that never comes. Robin's voice carried the fear and loneliness in every note. It was different from the loud psychedelic pop filling the airwaves at the time. This song proved the Bee Gees weren't just another band. They were storytellers, and Robin was the one holding the pen. It climbed the charts in the UK and the US, opening the door to everything that followed. In under 3 minutes, Robin had carved his place as the voice of quiet heartbreak. Just a few months later, in September 1967, Massachusetts turned that quiet heartbreak into something even bigger. Robin's voice took center stage again, this time with a softer, sadder tone. The song became their first #1 in the UK and reached the top in 12 other countries. The strange part was, none of them had ever been to Massachusetts. They just imagined it. And somehow, that made it more powerful. Robin recorded it during a busy week in London. The result was a song that sold over 5 million copies worldwide. It was still beloved decades later, ranking 3rd in a UK special about the group's best songs. Audiences felt something when Robin sang it. He performed it at nearly every concert for the rest of his life. It wasn't just a hit, it became his voice's signature, a sound full of longing and warmth. In 1967, something else changed the band's sound forever. 2 new musicians joined, Colin Peterson on drums and Vince Maloney on guitar. Colin had once been a child actor in Australia, but found a new life in music. He first played with Maurice Gibb and later joined the band full-time. Vince brought a rougher, bluesy sound that balanced Robin's fragile voice. His guitar shaped hits like Massachusetts and I Started a Joke. With these two, the Bee Gees became more than just a trio. They became a five-man machine, performing on shows like Ed Sullivan and Top of the Pops. The group's sound grew bolder and tighter. That small addition helped spark a run of success that carried them through years of hits. Then came a moment that could only belong to Robin. He was flying on a British Airways propeller plane, listening to the low drone of the engines. While most people would ignore it, Robin turned it into music. That steady hum became the melody for I Started a Joke. He later joked that he told the pilot to land so he could finish the song in a pub. The story wasn't true, but the inspiration was. Released in 1968, the song became one of his most emotional performances. Robin's voice sounded like it was holding back tears. That sadness and softness reached people everywhere. After his death in 2012, the song became a tribute to him. It was simple, haunting, and unforgettable. Many people began to take notice of that strange, trembling vibrato. Paul Gambaccini, a respected music historian, once called Robin one of the best white soul voices ever. It wasn't just praise, it was recognition. Robin didn't sound like anyone else. His voice cracked and trembled, not because it was weak, but because it was honest. Whether it was Massachusetts or I Started a Joke, he delivered each line with weight. His voice felt like it had lived through everything it sang about. But that voice came at a cost. On July 27, 1968, Robin collapsed. He lost consciousness just as the band was preparing for a major U.S. tour. He was only 18 years old. Doctors diagnosed him with nervous exhaustion, though that was often a polite way of describing mental and physical burnout. The endless performances, interviews, and pressure had worn him down. He was placed in a nursing home in London, and the tour was cancelled. It wasn't just a pause. It was the first real sign that the demands of fame had become too much. Robin wasn't just tired, he was breaking. His recovery didn't go smoothly. After some rest, Robin relapsed. This time, he had to be flown back to Sussex to recover at home. The Bee Gees had to carry on without him, and something was missing. He missed recording sessions for their album Odessa, and the mood in the studio changed. Maurice and Barry pushed forward, but the bond that held them together was starting to stretch thin. That tension grew worse in 1969. Robin and Barry began clashing over creative choices. One fight stood out above the rest. Robin's song Lamplight had been chosen as the lead single in Germany, but in most other places, it was placed on the B-side of Barry's song 1st of May. To Robin, it felt like a betrayal. He believed in that song. When it was pushed aside, he saw it as proof that his ideas no longer mattered. In March 1969, he made a decision. He quit. Robin was only 19, but the fallout was huge. Rumors swirled that he was using drugs, and his parents considered taking legal action to make him a ward of court. Under British law, adulthood didn't begin until 21. They feared he was losing control. Though no official action was taken, the worry was real. The pressure, the isolation, and the growing conflict had taken a toll on all of them. His final performances with the Bee Gees came on Top of the Pops and The Tom Jones Show. After that, he was gone. Lawsuits followed. Contracts were disputed. Robin's solo work was delayed, but he kept going. In June 1969, he released Saved by the Bell. It was a hit. By July 9th, it had reached number 2 on the UK charts. It also topped the charts in South Africa Ireland, and New Zealand, and hit number 3 in Germany. The US response was lukewarm, but Europe embraced it. Maurice even played piano and organ on the track, proving that family ties hadn't broken entirely. Robin also worked with other artists. Along with Barry and Maurice, he wrote Only One Woman for the duo The Marbles. It reached number 5 in the UK in 1968 and stayed in the top 10 for weeks. He helped them with other songs too, including The Walls Fell Down. Even while apart from the Bee Gees, Robin kept proving he could write, sing, and create without limits. Still, the absence of Robin hit the Bee Gees hard. Barry and Maurice continued, but the magic wasn't there. They played to near-empty venues and struggled financially. Barry once admitted that he considered quitting music altogether and taking a regular office job. Confidence faded. Money ran out. It was their lowest point. In August 1970, something shifted. Robin came back. The reunion wasn't easy. It took time, conversations, and the quiet realization that their strength was in unity. All 3 brothers had tried solo work, but none of them could match what they had together. They called it the magic of the 3. In the 1960s, they were seen as British pop stars, but by the early 1970s, that image was fading fast. Their album, Mr. Natural, barely reached number 178 in the US. Another album, Life in a Tin Can, failed to make an impact. Critics often called them Beatles imitators, and there didn't seem to be a clear way back. Then in 1975, things took a sharp turn. The brothers moved to Miami, following advice from Eric Clapton and the guidance of producer Arif Mardin. They started recording at Criteria Studios and became surrounded by a new music scene filled with rhythm, bass, and energy. That change in atmosphere helped shape a new sound. They blended R&B, stronger beats, clean production, and Barry Gibb's falsetto voice, which made its first big appearance on Nights on Broadway. That voice would go on to become their signature. Their new song, Jive Talkin', was inspired by the sound of their car tires hitting bumps on a Miami causeway. It quickly climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Their album, Main Course, went gold. You Should Be Dancing followed soon after, and confirmed they had found a whole new sound. Longtime fans were shocked. Some even felt let down. But the Bee Gees didn't just revive their career. They ended up setting the tone for a whole generation of music. When Robert Stigwood asked the Bee Gees to write songs for a new film called Saturday Night Fever, they had no idea what was coming. It was 1977, and the film was already deep into production. The soundtrack wasn't even finished yet. The brothers locked themselves in a French chateau, and, in a matter of days, wrote 5 songs. Those songs were Stayin' Alive, Night Fever, How Deep Is Your Love, More Than a Woman, and If I Can't Have You, which was performed by Yvonne Elliman. These songs would go on to define an entire era. Their work wasn't just in the writing. Their sound shaped the production of the entire soundtrack. The results were massive. Stayin' Alive became more than a hit. Its 103 beats per minute was later used to teach the timing of CPR. Night Fever held the top spot on the Billboard Hot 100 for 8 weeks. 4 songs written by the Bee Gees reached number 1 in the US between 1977 and 1978. These were Stayin' Alive, Night Fever, How Deep Is Your Love, and If I Can't Have You. No other team had ever done that before. The melodies carried urgency and hope. The lyrics captured a feeling that spoke to millions. Their music didn't just play in clubs. It captured the world. When the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack came out in November 1977, it became a cultural moment. Before Michael Jackson's Thriller, it held the record for the best-selling album in the world. It sold over 40 million copies globally. In the US alone, it was certified 16 times platinum and stayed at #1 for 24 straight weeks. It stayed on the Billboard Top 200 for 120 weeks. In France, it sold 1.97 million copies by early 1979 and passed 2.1 million by 1981. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year in 1979. The Library of Congress added it to the National Recording Registry for its cultural value. For the Bee Gees, this wasn't just another hit. It turned them into global stars. They were no longer just musicians. They were the faces of disco. Their sound was the sound of the late 70s. Robin Gibb didn't stop at Bee Gees Records. He and his brothers wrote hits for other major artists. In 1980, they worked with Barbra Streisand on her album Guilty. The song Woman in Love stayed at #1 in the US for 3 weeks and became her biggest global single. Robin also contributed to Guilty and What Kind of Fool, both duets. In 1983, they wrote Islands in the Stream for Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. It was originally meant for Marvin Gaye, but became a #1 hit across the Atlantic in its final form. The Bee Gees also sang background vocals on it. Kenny Rogers' album Eyes That See in the Dark had several songs written by the brothers. In 1985, Diana Ross had a hit with Chain Reaction, written and produced by all 3 Bee Gees. It reached #1 in the UK. They also worked with Dionne Warwick and their younger brother Andy Gibb. Robin's voice and writing helped shape pop music far beyond the Bee Gees' own albums. Over the years, the Bee Gees sold more than 220 million records around the world. Even conservative estimates put them above 120 million. This puts them among the top-selling artists of all time. Only names like Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and Michael Jackson are clearly ahead. The Saturday Night Fever soundtrack alone accounts for more than 40 million sales. Their 1979 album, Spirits Having Flown, added another 20 million. Robin Gibb's personal story took a dark turn when he began using methadone at age 17. It's a powerful form of methamphetamine that many musicians use to stay awake. Robin would stay up for days, skipping sleep and food, writing songs all night in a blur of activity. Over time, it ruined his health. He lost weight, became paranoid, and had serious mood swings. His family said he would work non-stop and never rest. The addiction broke his marriage and separated him from his children for 6 years. Modern science shows that using amphetamines early in life can cause long-term brain changes and mental health problems. Robin's life was proof of that. His addiction nearly ended his career and tore his family apart. By the early 1980s, his behavior became dangerous. FBI files show that he sent death threats to his wife Molly Hullis and her lawyers. One message said, "I have taken out a contract. It is now a question of time." He sent many such messages, and federal agents took them seriously. They investigated but didn't press charges because there was no hard proof of a real hitman. The investigation ended in 1981, but the damage was done. It showed how far Robin had fallen. His drug use had made him unstable, and people close to him were scared. Robin's drug use also affected his relationships. He had more than 100 affairs while married, driven by heightened desires caused by amphetamines. He was especially obsessed with watching 2 women together. These fantasies became part of his daily life. His former manager confirmed that the affairs were not just rumors. Robin's demands became so extreme that even friends and staff were dragged into his search for new partners. It became part of his reputation in the music industry. Chris Hutchins, who managed Robin, said he used to get calls in the middle of the night. Sometimes it would be 1 a.m., and Robin would be asking for help to find women. He was restless and demanding, and the drug use made things worse. At one point, There were handprints found 8 feet high on the walls of his home, a strange reminder of what went on behind closed doors. For those close to him, these moments were hard to handle. Robin Gibb met Molly Hullis in 1967. He was 17, she was 20. Just weeks after they fell for each other, they were caught in one of the UK's worst train disasters, the Hither Green rail crash. 49 people died. Robin pulled Molly out through a broken window. That moment tied them together. In May 1983, Robin gave an interview to the Scottish Daily Express. He talked about the divorce and custody battle, even though a gag order was in place. On September 9, 1983, Robin was sentenced to 14 days in jail for violating that order. He was 33. Molly cried when she heard the news, but he didn't stay in jail long. After just 2 hours, he posted a bond of $22,500 and paid a fine of $7,500. He left immediately to perform in Italy. The press covered the scandal heavily. Some saw him as a victim. Others thought he was unraveling. When news broke about Robin's affair with housekeeper Claire Yang, it still hit hard. Robin was supposed to sing one of the solos, but his illness stopped him. A recording of his voice was played instead, while RJ introduced the piece. It was one of Robin's proudest moments. It showed how much father and son had grown together. Writer David N. Meyer once said that no matter how strange Robin and Dwina's marriage seemed, their bond was real. Robin depended on her. Their love was honest. It just didn't look like other people's love. Music editor Ian Drew called them artistic and open-minded. He said they truly understood each other. Through heartbreak, chaos, and scandal, they stayed together for almost 30 years. On January 12, 2003, Maurice Gibb died. He was 53. He had stomach pain and was rushed to Mount Sinai Medical Center in Miami Beach. Doctors found a twisted intestine. During surgery, Maurice's heart gave out. His death shocked the world. The Bee Gees ended that day. Robin never got over it. He and Maurice were twins. Robin once said he felt like half his soul had been ripped away. After Maurice's death, Robin kept working. He focused on solo music and charity. Between 2003 and 2012, he supported soldiers returning from Afghanistan. On February 13, 2012, he performed with the soldiers at the London Palladium. It was one of his last live shows. He was weak but determined. He had just finished the Titanic Requiem with RJ. He never stopped working, even while fighting illness. In 2011, Robin was diagnosed with colon cancer. He had been feeling sick for months, but by early 2012, he seemed to improve. He said the cancer was nearly gone. Doctors were amazed. Fans cheered his recovery. He planned more music, more shows, more life. But in April 2012, his condition suddenly got worse. On May 20th, he died. What many didn't know was that cancer wasn't what killed him. Robin John later revealed the truth. The cancer had gone into remission, but Robin's body couldn't handle the treatments anymore. His liver and kidneys began to fail. He had a seizure. Sedatives were given, but his organs were too weak. He was still alert just 3 days before his death, watching DVDs, talking to his family. Then he was gone. The treatment had done what the disease could not. In his final moments, Robin whispered about Maurice. He said he missed him. He still couldn't believe Maurice was gone. Robin never let go of that pain. Even in a coma, he talked about future tours with Barry and Maurice. He never admitted he might die. He asked that "How Deep Is Your Love" be played at his funeral. That song and those words were his final goodbye. The brother he lost was never far from his mind. In the end, it was not the fame, the scandals, or the songs that defined him. It was love and the ache that never healed.